the recipient is, don't try to read it, it's really just a kind of a representation. And there's an API associated with that. So what the issuer is actually doing is working with an API in order to issue badges. And then this is kind of the overall picture of how the whole system works, right? So on the far side are the issuers, and they get to decide that they're issuing a badge. It goes into what we call the badge backpack that I alluded to a little bit earlier. And that's really the location where all badges get aggregated. So right now, Mozilla is hosting the example of what a badge backpack could be. And so because of who we are, our privacy is a significant aspect of that, which means that ultimately, it's not necessary to follow that badge backpack theory that we have, that all the badges always default to private, but instead, if someone, because it's open source software, someone can take this content and actually silo it, and they can actually decide that all badges get public automatically. And we've even had instances already with people who are issuing badges that they've developed a different methodology of issuing, which their badges are kind of crowdsourced. So they work within peers in a classroom, and those peers decide whether or not what the badges are, and then they decide to award them publicly. So it's a little bit reverse in the way that when it moves into the Mozilla backpack, right now it defaults to private. So from their standpoint, it doesn't make a lot of sense. So they may actually run their own instance of a badge backpack, in which case all badges would default to public. So there is that opportunity there to kind of take that and significantly change it there. So then from the badge backpack, Gladys is making that decision again to make something public in the way that Steve just described. Whether or not it's on a one-by-one basis or actually putting badges into groups and saying make that whole badge group public but only to this site, or make that whole group public but make it public to everyone. And this is our website. If you actually haven't had a chance to get there, please do. It's openbadges.org. And when you get on that site, you actually have the opportunity to earn your first digital badge. And it's really designed to kind of step you through the process of what it's like. Now, obviously, this doesn't have a lot of assessment associated with it. It's mostly just to have people understand how the process works. And I'm just going to step you through a little bit of how the site works so that you get an understanding of that. So let's go back for a second. So you click on the Get Started button. You say, like, yes, I want to learn about badges. And it brings up this modal window, and it kind of asks you, it says, like, this is what we're going to do. We're going to earn a badge. Let's step through this. And then I've jumped you through the badge earning process already. I'm assuming you've answered the questions correctly, but even so, we can address that. It actually asks, so does learning happen everywhere? Does it make sense to, not just in classrooms, it's asking that question. Does learning happen everywhere? Yes. Okay, so sorry, now I've jumped you to, like, you've got the badge. There are a few more questions in there, but you get the idea. And then here, you enter, you have to fill out the form. You're going to fill your name in, essentially, here, and you want to send the badge to the backpack. And we're working on the UX a little bit right now, because this is a little bit of a complex process. So essentially it's saying, like, you're going to have to sign in, and there's a sign-in process to get your badge to a backpack. It's worth noting that all badges are based currently on email address. And then, again, this is the option. So if I were Gladys here, I'd be getting the option of accepting this badge, yes or no. I want to accept it. I'm going to act as Gladys here for a second. Okay, and now it tells me you've added this badge to your backpack. And then you can from there, go to your backpack or order another badge. And that badge is a lot of fun, the next badge, which is it's a Hackasaurus Navigator badge. I highly recommend that. Hackasaurus is fun. Hackasaurus is about digital literacy. It's another Mozilla project. And here we are. Now we're in the backpack. And I can see, like, oh, there's my badge. I have one badge. I've earned one badge. And I have the option to drag a badge into a group. And groups are how I make my badges public. So let's see, I have actually dragged my badge into that group now, and I have the option to name that group. So that every time you create a group, you can name it, so that you can know where you're sending things. So maybe I have a LinkedIn group where I always send them to LinkedIn, or I have a Facebook group, and I always send those to Facebook. And then here, this is actually, so within that, I've clicked on the badge itself, and it actually tells you, this is what someone sees when they click on a badge. This is the content that they see. Who the issuer is, what the URL is for the badge, that's the criteria URL. If you click on that, you get taken back to the issuer's site, and that's where you see the criteria associated with that issuer. And then there's the organization who's issued the badge, what the name of the badge is, and then that's another, sorry, there's the organization and the criteria, and then I've actually annotated this a little bit. So you have the option within your badges right now in your backpack to say, well, this is an open field where you actually have the opportunity to write in something about that badge. We're still working that out. They may or may not be there for some people, depending on privacy considerations. And then, so let me go back for just a second. You can actually share from, on the next slide, you can actually, not slide, but the next sequence, you would actually be able to share this badge publicly. So you have the option of sharing it. So what's next for Mozilla Open Badges? Because we are still very early on in the process. As I mentioned, we just released beta a few months ago. Public beta is Q1. We're still working on improving the user experience for the badge backpack to make sure that it's an easy process so that people are easily moved through it. We're also, in Q3, we're working on Open Badger. And Open Badger is that project that I talked a little bit earlier about, that is the end-to-end solution, allows you to issue a badge easily without necessarily having complete technical chops. And then we're also working on an improved displayer API, and displayers are a really important part of the ecosystem here, in that they would be organizations like LinkedIn or Facebook or Inside Jobs. Excuse me. And what's important from their standpoint is they can do lots of metrics and analytics about badges that we don't necessarily do. So let's say they have all these personal profiles that people have shared badges with. And in the same way, it works kind of like Learning Registry in that there's all this content associated. It will be free-floating content, and whether or not people scoop it up and do things with it is a kind of open-ended question. And so Inside Jobs has this concept where, let's say that I have a personal profile with them, and I have shown 5 badges to them, and they can look at my data, and they can see that the kind of jobs I'm interested in, and they can say, you know what, you have these 5 badges. Turns out that for the people who have the jobs that you're looking for, they actually have 7 badges, so you're kind of missing these 2 badges. You might actually want to go get those other 2 badges because it will improve your ability to get a position in this area.
So just this is to tie up to one of the reasons we're in this room. It's very exciting to me because badges offer an opportunity not just to say, I have a high school diploma, but I have a high school diploma and I'm dual literate, right? I speak Spanish fluently, I read and write, right? And California State says so, right? Which is a significant statement. And it goes beyond a diploma, and it starts asking questions of what California can do with its reputation, its authority, and its ability to run a school system, to create incentives for schools to do the right thing, for kids to work harder, and for employers to leverage that information in various ways. So this is, I think, one of the reasons we're here. So I just want to put a bookmark on that, and we may have time to discuss.
Yep. Thank you. And then also in Q3, we're working on the endorsement API, and as I mentioned, OBI 1.0, Q4. Look for it. Yep.
Well, exciting, yes. But what about access? And I'm wondering about, not access for myself,
accessibility,
or education folks, but the working class and working poor. The badge concept in terms of hireability and moving up, great concept, but with limited resources in terms of access to public places. Libraries aren't necessarily open when they're off work. Is that part of the thought process at all? You know, it's great for the silo, those of us that are in the silo, and we're going to make great use of it. But what about outside the silo, which might actually be much more beneficial to the rest of society?
So you're kind of hitting on a use case that is exactly where we want to. It's the sweet spot to a certain degree, how we can make sure that people are wrapped into the system when we're currently outside of the system. And it is something that we're thinking about pretty heavily. Right now, let me also just clarify too. Badges are representations. They are digital representations of learning, but they are not necessarily digital learning. So it is just a digital representation. It might be that you're a fantastic chef and you have a badge for it. It might be that you're,
you've got a high school diploma, which you haven't.